Apologies, we've had some technical issues this morning, but fingers crossed these problems have been ironed out. Let's crack on with the show on Herald Now this morning. Parliament for our politics panel, and joining us from Parliament is Marama Davidson from the Greens and David Seymour from ACT. Kia ora, guys. Thanks so much for being with us.
Morena.
Morena. David, just first up, do the atrocities in Bondi give you any reason to pause and consider ACT's opposition of some elements of gun law reforms in New Zealand?
Well, not at all. The policies that we've taken have grown up over many years of thinking hard about what policies are best for New Zealand. In Australia, they need to get the facts, understand exactly what happened, and they may make changes. But, you know, without getting into their politics or speculating too early, it seems the problem is not their gun laws per se, but as you said in your introduction, a person who was on a terror watch list was able to keep a licence and have 6 guns. Now, one of the things that our Minister in charge of Firearms Reform and an ACT MP has been working on is making sure we have a firearms safety authority that gets on top of things like that. Unfortunately, it sounds similar to the situation we had in New Zealand, where the person concerned, the terrorist, should never have been a firearms licence. Someone should have picked up when he bought 9 rounds of ammunition, but they didn't. And so, no, we are here to make sure that the public is safe and legitimate firearm users can be treated with dignity and respect. Those things are possible, rather than getting into this goodies and baddies narrative, which hasn't actually been safer, let alone Australia safe.
Okay. Marama, so where do you sit on this? Are our current gun laws, post these reviews, etc., up to scratch? And or do you agree with ACT's push to change them?
Well, we really don't want to water down safety. We have to put the safety of public and community ahead of the gun lobby, and, you know, to wind back the police being able to regulate who has gun legislation is not wise ever. What we know is the ACT Party have to want to expand access to military-style semi-automatic weapons, and that is just not smart. So at all times, we really need to put public safety, community safety, well ahead of the interests of the gun lobby.
Okay, Marama, just to follow that up and go on to a completely different topic, half-year economic update, do you think the government is doing enough to improve the economy right now?
Well, Nicola Willis's attempts and cuts have actually just seen more and more people and communities suffer, when actually what we can have is a government that properly invests in the services our community require and deserve, that puts public good ahead of private gain, so that everyone can have access to healthcare, to housing, to the services they need. We can actually end poverty and homelessness. What good is the surplus that Nicola Willis is looking for, while we've got people living on the streets, while we've got people struggling to get access to GPs because of costs, while we've got people struggling to pay their power bills, when actually we can properly invest, spend in those areas so that people can live good lives?
Okay, Dave, ACT had the finance portfolio. What would it be doing differently to Nicola Willis right now?
Well, bear in mind that we're part of the government. I'm one of the 5 budget ministers, so we are part of this effort to contain costs and get the country, or at least the government. The biggest challenge that we have is that we're paying about $9 billion each year on interest on debt that was racked up before we got in. What we're going to have to do to get on top of that is continue to save wherever we can. And I look at the influence of this government. So far, around about $14 billion of savings can be directly attributed to ACT ministers or ACT policies that the government has taken on. That must continue. And to answer Marama's point,
which areas, David, require more savings? Where would you see?
Well, I look at the size of our public service right across the board. You know, you could pick one area, but you won't get there. We inherited about 60,000 full-time equivalents in the public service. That was up from 47,000 when Labor first took office. There's another 15,000 people in there doing things, but people ask themselves, has the quality of services improved? Actually, during those 6 years of opposition, a lot of public services got worse. For example, fewer people were vaccinated for measles, just to pick one really important example. What we need to do is make sure that we get the outcomes, spending the money, because if you just say, well, the solution to every problem is to spend more money, we will be broke. So I know you want, we cut this, we'll cut that. Actually, you need a totally different approach across the board to make the government smaller and more efficient. A good example of that is merging 4 ministries into one. They're all basically doing the same thing, consenting development roads to connect them together. And this new ministry is a very good example of that. I've said all year we need to go away from having 41 ministries, 86 portfolios, 28 ministers. Nobody can be in control of an organisation like that. Ireland has only 16 ministers and 16 ministries. We need to get back to that sort of compact, small, efficient government that delivers the services people need without sending...
Okay, I hear your argument on that. I just want to touch on the Treaty Principles Bill and the debate. What do you mean when you say you would like to sort of reignite this year? Why?
Well, I haven't said that. That's a headline writer. I think it was RNZ. What I said in the interview that headline was above is that I will never back down on the idea that New Zealanders are inherently equal. We are all born and we should have the same rights and duties. In fact,
so just to clarify though, are you going to begin discussions on this, stir another public debate on this issue in the election year next year?
Well, yes, because we believe that the basic principle of equal rights for all New Zealanders is go away whether I'm there or not. So it's going to remain part of the discussion in New Zealand.
Doesn't the division that this has caused in New Zealand, David, give you reason to pause and go, well, look, is it worth dying in a ditch over? Aren't there other policies that your party could be pursuing that would be more politically popular?
Well, let me get into that. First of all, you don't do things just because they're popular. Second of all, the ACT Party has driven more change in terms of public policy. You look at the last few months, the changes in earthquake regulations, the new resource management law, the change targets, the new Arms Act, the regulations.
Okay. I just need to get into.
It goes on.
Ask a question.
So
sorry,
don't accuse
David.
us of not having one thing. But I need to get to the first point you made, which is, I'm sorry, completely wrong. The division that it's caused to say that people are equal, that only causes division in an environment where people have been told for years that we should te tangata whenua and tangata tiriti according to...
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'm just going off the enormous heckler protest that we saw at Parliament. That looked like division to me. Marama, is this a debate you think is worth having? David's saying that, he will indeed renew this debate. Take on this?
If David Seymour was really interested in improving people's lives and equality, he would massively scale up public housing. He would stop suppressing wages for workers that his party is leading. He would stop his minister, Brooke Van Velden, from dialing back rights and workers' rights and conditions. He would not have put forward the pay equity, pushing pay equity to be clawed back so that we do not pay women, workers around the country, what they are worth. So, David, you had your turn. So, what we really... My turn now.
Let Marama speak, David, if you can.
Thank you, Michael. Te Tiriti is about unity. We saw that with the largest hikoi ever in the country to reach the steps of Parliament. We are seeing that with the schools resoundingly rejecting this government's attempt to remove Te Tiriti from education. Ahead to 80%, it's well over 72% right now of schools have said, no, Te Tiriti brings us together under the promise of peoples to take the best possible care of each other. That is the principle that Te Tiriti was founded on. People are obviously really proud about that. We have generations now of between Māori and non-Māori working together, whether it's at marae, whether it's in community, whether it's restoring rivers and waterways, whether it's feeding people and sheltering people in civil defence emergencies. Working together is what Te Tiriti has always been
you don't
about.
have a monopoly.
Okay, kia ora, guys. Hey, look, we're going to have to leave it there. Appreciate you guys being with us every week. The debate has been vigorous. And it's been contentious at times, but we do appreciate you guys coming and speaking to us on Herald Now week after week. Merry Christmas to you both. That's Marama Davidson from the Greens and David Seymour from ACT. Thank you for
you too, Mike, and thanks to everyone who's put up with us and listened.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Kia ora, guys. Fantastic.
Kia ora, Mike.
Well, moving on, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced a new push to tighten gun laws after the mass shooting in Bondi, including limiting the number of guns a person can own and only aliens to own a gun. Joining us now is Professor Alexander Gillespie from Waikato University's Faculty of Law. Al, thanks so much for being with us. Just first of all, starting with Australia after Bondi, the government says tougher gun laws are needed. From a legal perspective, are these kinds of responses effective? Reassurances in the aftermath of such a tragedy?
Good morning, Michael. I think you have to begin with the understanding that an atrocity like this is a combination of a lack of social cohesion and intelligence failure and firearms law, and you have to look at all three pieces together. What you normally see following an atrocity is a report, a commission, and firearms law change happens after that. So whether you're in Britain, Canada, Australia or New Zealand, if firearms aren't a right, the privilege is restricted and that platform used in the attack are commonly removed from the public arena.
Yeah, right. So what you're saying, it's not about tweaking firearms legislation alone.
You can't just get there by making sure that there's less guns available in the community. That's part of the answer, but it's also cohesion and intelligence. And what you're seeing here is a catastrophic failure on the Australian part, because no one who is alive is to an extremist. And also you need to make sure that considerations of vetting are as strong as they can be. In this situation, something's gone wrong and someone's got a firearm who they shouldn't have.
Al, are you calling this a catastrophic failure because of the fact that Australian was aware and was investigating one of these terrorists as far back as 2019 and that his dad was a licensed gun owner?
That's two parts of it. The first part, the intelligence, is that this person was on the radar, the son, and no one should be allowed to have a firearm to an extremist or, in my argument, a gang member either. The second part is with regards to the man who was the firearms license owner himself. You can change the law, and if you took the next step, because Australia already has very good standards, you'd be looking at things like restricting the amount of firearms that a person may have. This is the law currently in Western Australia and firearms. I imagine the Australians will now be looking at whether this is applicable across the board.
Al, do you think we in New Zealand should be looking at some of the new measures Australia is looking at? For example, limiting the number of firearms a person can own, restricting ownership to New Zealand citizens. Are any of these measures that are being looked at by Australia applicable to New Zealand, and if so, which ones?
Firearms law is a matter of continual reform. And what we do is we have an attack and we learn from it. And we need to learn not just from New Zealand, but also from our friends and our colleagues and our cousins overseas, because what happens there can happen. The good thing is that the current government has not tried to rescind most of the restrictions that were imposed post-Christchurch. You can do further steps, which would be limiting the firearms numbers, but the problem you've got is you only reduce the impact. You'll never take it to zero with the risk of a terror attack, but there may be merit in that, but that deserves discussion. Your other option is more club membership to make sure people are part of the community, and also medical certificates to make sure that when people renew their firearms, they're evaluated by independent experts. These are additional steps that you can take, but you will never take the risk to zero, but you can reduce it.
Absolutely. So, Al, you would like to see some form of public debate about whether, in fact, be allowed to own, 12 pistols or as many firearms as I like. You think that that is a worthwhile debate to be having in New Zealand right now, given the fact that we know the prospects of, an attack in New Zealand is a real one, according to the New Zealand SIS.
The prospect at the moment. It is possible, but when they come out from nowhere, the impact can be great. What you have to try to do is reduce the scale of that impact, and certain firearms restrictions, such as removing semi-automatics or high-powered firearms, reduce the multiplying effect. But you've still got standard firearms, and what you could see within Bondi is what were relatively well trained with standard firearms, what carnage they could do. And so restricting the amount of firearms could be part of the equation. It's a good debate to have, but I wouldn't say whether it's the right argument for New Zealand. But I can tell you that other countries have gone down that route and they have adopted it.
That's fantastic. Hey, really appreciate your insights this morning, Professor Al Gillespie, University of Waikato. Thank you very much for your time on Herald Now this morning. Well, we've had a peek into the government's books. Yesterday's half-year economic fiscal update told us we still have a long way to go, with the economic outlook weaker than expected and Treasury forecasting a late recovery. So what does it actually mean? Here to unpack it is economist Shamabeel Yukab. So Shamabeel, thank you very much for being with us this morning. What are your key takeaways from this year's report?
Well, it's the half-year update, and compared to in May is that the economic recovery is later, the fiscal position is going to take longer to get back into repair, and essentially the big story is we have some very big choices to make in New Zealand in the future. We've got big pressures with an aging population, we've got tax systems and public services so there are some pretty big decisions ahead for New Zealand. We're just running structural deficits, and we'll continue to run them until 2030. It's a hell of a long time to be borrowing money for the groceries.
The spending is higher than expected. Did that surprise you?
Not really. It's really hard to do because the government wants to make progress. These things cost money. And essentially what we're seeing in the forecast is that every forecast that we see is that the spending reductions will be in the future, the recovery will be in the future, the recovery in taxes will be in the future. So it's always repair that happens in the future. But the pressing challenges in terms of rising cost of superannuation, the rising cost of health, and all those other bits and pieces, you just can't stop because those are things that the public and New Zealand wants.
Nicola Willis says that the government spending is, quote, disciplined and that things are picking up. From your reading of the situation, is that accurate?
Well, the forecasts are that the recovery has been delayed relative to what we had expected. All the forecasts for the last few years has been the recovery is imminent. It's just around the corner. I'm very hopeful that next year we will see a recovery, but we're relying a lot on the economic cycle turning. There are still some really big choices that not just this government, but also future governments. The reality is that New Zealand will have run 16 years of deficits in the 25 years to 2030. And a lot of those deficits are not because, we're doing things in terms of investing in New Zealand. It's because our tax sittings are not suited to the public services that these are just hard choices that we are not contemplating in New Zealand yet. And these are the big decisions that still have to be made.
Yeah, so what is that big decision that, in your opinion, the government needs to make to get back on track faster?
Well, there are two things. I think, the reality is that we need to have a really grown-up conversation about if we want to have lots of public services at a high quality, we have to pay for it somehow. And the other is really around when we have those public services, can we have them in the way that we have, whether it's super, whether it's health, whatever it is. Can they be at the level that we wanted? And can they be universal? The answer is probably not. And we're going to have decisions on things like superannuation, things like means testing of that in particular, because superannuation costs are rising by billions of dollars every year. And we're just not doing enough on that yet. So, we're seeing some encouraging progress on things like KiwiSaver policy, which is really, really good. It's laying the groundwork for that to happen in the future. But I think we're running every time there's a new crisis, we get back into that kitty of borrowing for, filling up those holes and not making those big decisions, those tough decisions that have to be made.
Really appreciate your insights this morning on Herald Now. Shamabeel Yukab, economist. The government's books are under increasing pressure. Treasury forecasts showing larger deficits and a longer road to recovery than previously expected. Despite that, Finance Minister Nicola Willis insists the government can return to surplus sooner than the numbers suggest. She joins us now. Kia ora, Minister. Thank you very much for being here. Labor says the government has lost control of the economy. Is that fair?
No, quite the opposite. What this update showed yesterday is that because of our ongoing commitment to savings, reprioritisation, fiscal discipline, we are able to forecast the books returning to surplus and that debt curve bending down. Is to just keep spending like there was no tomorrow, never to do any reprioritisation, and that would mean endless deficits and escalating debt, and we've rejected that approach.
Minister, do you accept, however, that you may have underestimated the challenge of turning things around?
I think all New Zealanders have experienced this year the fact that we have had a slower recovery than anyone hoped for. The announcement by Donald Trump of tariffs in April had a significant effect on business confidence and investment in New Zealand, and we have felt that in the economy. What Treasury are now saying is still very confident about our economy recovering and growing fast in the years ahead. It's just been a little delayed. But what that means for your everyday Kiwi watching this at home is there are going to be tens of thousands more jobs created over the next few years. Incomes are going to rise faster than inflation, and this is a place where there are more opportunities, more businesses growing, more things happening.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, National's pre-election pledge was surplus by 2026 to 2027, and the goalposts keep shifting. So how are you going to make the further savings? What policy change?
Well, just to be clear there, we have absolutely stuck to our commitments on spending restraint. In fact, we've ensured that the increases we've made at budgets are below what we said they would be, and that's all about keeping the books intact. As we look ahead, what we've said is ongoing approach of looking for where are the areas that aren't providing good value for money or aren't...
Where are those areas, Minister?
Sorry?
Where are those areas that are not providing good value for money?
Well, if you look back over our first couple of budgets, we delivered $43 billion worth of savings. And
I know, but I'm talking about budget next year. Where can you deliver savings next year?
Yeah, well, look, I've written to all ministers in the government and their agencies, and I've suggested to them that they look for efficiencies in their own spending, that they ensure that their government agencies are putting forward ideas for savings having good impact that could stop activities that could be tightened up, could be delivered in a new or more efficient way. And so we'll weigh up all of those different savings options, and then we'll present those at the budget in May next year.
The taxpayer union, of course, is scathing, saying that no one was expected to be anywhere near this bad. Your response to that?
Look, the taxpayers union, they've been barking away, but I actually challenged them to front up for a debate and put voice to some of the things that they think should happen right now to get the books back in order. For example, they want to completely get rid of working for families tax credits, which would mean that around 330,000 families would be worse off, on average, by $180 a week. Now, I reckon that's pretty hard to justify, and I reckon that's why the taxpayers union wouldn't front.
Okay, Nicola Willis, Finance Minister, we really appreciate your time this morning and throughout the year on Herald Now. Much appreciated. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Well, we're going to go straight to business.
Merry Christmas, Michael.
Thank you very much. We're going to go straight to business with our partners 2 Degrees, and Garth. Prices for key exports have dropped again in the latest global trade auction overnight. Yeah, so Gus, run us through the numbers.
Yes, this is the global dairy trade. Excuse me, a few gremlins in the voice this morning as well.
Yeah, I've got the same issue, mate.
Global dairy trade auction, the results just out overnight, another drop. So that's a 4.4% drop in the index, but to the key sort of whole milk powder, which underpins a lot of Fonterra's Farmgate milk price, it was a 5.7% drop on the previous event. So we're now down about $3,100 a tonne.
So that's really big.
It's quite a significant fall. It's possibly people have been expecting these kinds of drops. 9th time that the index has moved downwards, and certainly things are way off the peak back in May, sort of down about 27%. What we've really seen is a consistent pattern of more and more production. We've even seen China now recording its second year-on-year growth over a month in production of dairy. So North America, Europe, everyone is making what we make. And so the premium really is just on the quality of New Zealand product. But it's I guess that's this is how commodity prices move. They're cyclical. They come up, they come down, people respond. We're on a bit of a downer at the moment.
Yeah, right. So what is the latest on the mine sand from Bream Bay and Northland? I've seen the protests up there. I'm a Northlander myself. This is a contentious one.
Yeah, so this is a wee story we've got in Business Desk today that looks at a McCallum Brothers, who are a firm that supplies materials to the building trade, to construction mostly, ready-mix concrete. And they want to take about 150 to 250,000 cubic metres of sand out of Bream Bay, which, as you'll know from being up that way, is a pretty popular fishing spot, recreational spot. And they say that that's pretty crucial to ease some pressures within the market. The opponents of that have gotten hold of or commissioned a report from a very respected New Zealand consulting firm, which basically surveys the sand available for ready-mix concrete in Auckland and says there's way too much. There's plenty there. There's about, by its estimates, 170 to 330% of demand from the supply that's there. In other words, there's potentially 3. So you don't need to go for more. This is a fast-track process that McCallum's is trying to enter into, and so that's going to be tested pretty soon. Be interesting to see what their response is. But initially they're saying, hey, we're not so sure about this report. We think some of those spots that they are talking about they're not consented, they're not. But we're yet to sort of see them show their cards completely when they make a formal application or a complete application to the fast-track process.
Yes, so I mean, could this, Becca in the report, could that slow things down? I mean, that's the sort of type of agency that does a whole lot of reports for the government. Yeah,
I guess those opponents trying to get their shots away early because it's not entirely clear who gets called in. The amendment to the Fast-Track Act that's just gone through does allow for the panels that they create to consider these decisions to call people in still who they think need to be consulted. So there's potential for this group, the Guardians of Bream Bay, that. But I guess what we're also sort of seeing is there's other fast-track applications for other sand mining or extraction operations around that area. It's not clear whether each one kind of gets compared or whether you just look at the merits of each one on its own when they go forward to a panel.
Now, we've got a financial markets regulator is investigating a firm. What are we hearing about that?
Oh, so this is Chance Voigt Investment Group, which is probably a lot of people won't have heard of unless they spend a lot of time at the bowls clubs down in the South Island. So the FMA got some court orders to appoint liquidators last week over that group of companies investigating. But one of our reporters, Maria Slade at Business Desk, got a hold of a former employee who basically said, look, so this firm is offering 11% returns on investments backed by real estate to wholesale investors, which we've talked about before. They're the kind of basically people who can afford to take quite a big risk. They're not your retail investors. But effectively, the former employee says that they went after a certain demographic of wholesale investor, men over 65, right, with investment staff of, he says, very cute young ladies. Basically, we found a recent job ad that said Chance Voigt does not apply DEI and inclusion principles when hiring new employees. They were splashing a lot of cash around South Island bowls clubs and effectively pitching to older men with this attractive proposition of big returns I'm talking about. So the plan was also to get in there and buy stocks and buy them as cheaply as possible. Look, we're still not sure what the investigation is about. We'll get a liquidator's first report probably after the summer break.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see what that reveals. Doesn't sound like it'll be that great. Garth, thanks for your time. We'll see you again tomorrow. That is Garth Bray from Business Desk, and we talk business every day with our partners, 2 Degrees. Time for a break, but next we've got tech expert Paul in to talk about some cutting-edge gifts for Christmas. Then Mark Richardson's in to talk personal finance, thanks to our partners, Forsyth Bar.
Building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again. One Roof Property. Love where you live.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry with flex. It makes designing easy, all at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height width or depth. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
But your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Forsyth Barr investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Forsyth Barr, investment advice.
Kia ora, you're watching Herald Now. I'm Michael Morra. Great to have you with us this morning. Chaos just around the corner. Some festive technology might just come to the rescue. Paul Spain, Gorilla Technology Chief Executive, is with me now. Smart lighting. Tell me about this, Paul. What is it? Why do we need it?
Well, the smart lighting's been around for a while. We're probably used to with our putting lights on them, but with some of this new smart lighting, I've been playing around with the Wiz Gradient floor lamp and some of the Hue lights, a thing called the Hue wall washer. You kind of light up your whole home in Christmas colours kind of inside, so it'll light up the walls. Really slick.
So we're talking about lights that trigger when you walk into the room, or are these just like festive coloured lights?
Well, with being smart lights, you can trigger them via what's playing on your TV, music, or you can trigger them with motion, or you can just set them with a bit of a theme and the light move around a bit. So it just, gives you a bit of that, that mood for Christmas, I suppose. Yeah.
Sounds good. What about the dreaded Christmas cleanup? Have you got any tips for that? Yeah. We all know about that. The paper, the mess, the food.
It's a challenge, isn't it? Especially if you've got, people and so on. So, I tried out Dyson's new pencil vac, which, we're used to, the full vacuum cleaners and even the portable ones. But, this takes it to the next level in terms of being slim and light, so quick cleanup. That might be the gadget.
Can you just elaborate a bit more? A pencil vac doesn't sound like it'd be very effective at cleaning up all the Christmas cake.
Well, if you think of the normal tube that you have for your vacuum cleaner, usually at the top of that is where all the electronics and the suction comes from. With the pencil vacuum. So in the tube is actually the motor for suction, so really, really tiny but powerful motor, and the batteries and the smarts, and it links up to your smartphone as well, and lets you know how and when to clean it and so on.
Okay, sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now you've got something pretty interesting you've brought here. This is the e-paper tablet. Is it just another iPad, or is it something a bit more fancy than that?
Yeah, so what Remarkable have been focused on is a sort of e-paper, e-ink type tablet, but they've just launched this one which big your pockets are, might well fit in your pocket. And what I like about it is it's a distraction-free bit of technology. So your smartphone, you're always getting, alerts, and you've got messages coming in and so on, and you go down rabbit holes. With this, it's more something for you to, scribble notes on. Maybe it's make your list of resolutions for the coming year and so on, but without all the usual sort of distractions. So you can write on it, you can draw on it, and it'll convert what you scribble into text if you want to move that into some other software later. Okay,
so can you receive like text messages or fire it off as an email, or is it essentially just for scribbling on?
It syncs up to the cloud, so it's all backed up, and you can then send those, drawings or notes to people by email, and you can also pull in things like PDF documents and so on, and notes on them, mark them up, signatures and the like.
Sounds pretty cool, but it's not for like endlessly doom scrolling Instagram videos or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay, well, it sounds like something I probably need. Hey, Paul Spain, Chief Executive of Gorilla Technology, thank you very much for being with us. We're going to take a quick break. Then, in case you're overspending at Christmas, Mark Richardson is in to talk personal finance, thanks to our partners at Forsyth Bar. Then an expert in Islamic politics gives his take on the background to the Bondi massacre.
Oh, no lemming tech solutions.
TV.
Oh, goody. We're a family of 4, so we need it done perfect. Too high. Too low. Just right.
Of course, we can assess your Wi-Fi network and run a speed test. And now check out these features. This is how you get to streaming.
We love...
Nobody has supreme knowledge of home TV setup like Noel Leeming.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. Next, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
You can have what she's having.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own. Unlike other tea, pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
Welcome back. Great to have you with us on Herald. It's time for an update on all things personal finance. Mark Richardson, investment advisor, thanks to our partners at Forsyth Bar. Hey, so where are the opportunities for 2026?
I suppose that's what we're starting to look forward to is, you know, how's the next year looking? This year very much driven by those. And depending on where you sit, you know, if you think that there is no tech bubble and things are going to continue and those companies start to continue to deliver on, you know, the revenue promises, I guess, then, you know, just normal, just everything just continues as it is. Otherwise, where are there some opportunities? Sort of, you know, just rotate out of those, and we've seen a little bit of that over the last wee while, so may as well look at that and go, okay, where do we see some good value, where do we see some good opportunities next year? And I'm going to say, first of all, no one has a crystal ball, but...
Why not? Come on, mate.
Well, you know, you make educated predictions, don't you, and you put your money where you the playing field is looking good for some growth. I think the New Zealand market is looking quite good. The New Zealand market responds to a decreasing interest rate cycle. Well, you know, arguably we could be at the bottom of that, but importantly, it also responds well to a stabilising economy and then a growing economy. And in the last reporting season, see some positive results, a lot more positive results than we saw the prior. And we're hoping that with those green shoots and those improving you know, economic reports from our main businesses, we will see some life in the New Zealand share market, which has really gone nowhere over the last 5 years. So an opportunity may be there next year.
Okay. What about Europe? How are their markets looking?
Yeah, Europe's been a little bit out of favour. It is obviously quite fragmented as one region. But there is some valuations, and the multiples of some of those companies are a lot less than, you know, some of the multiples. So basically what you're paying for what they're delivering are a lot more affordable markets than in the US market, so some real genuine opportunity there as some interest will go that way. And we at the moment, you know, we feel that geographical diversification is a good thing to put into your portfolio and look for some of those markets over there, which have not been great over the last wee while, to actually start to see some life, hopefully next year and beyond.
Talking about your portfolio, I mean, how many eggs do you put in that basket versus staying in New Zealand or shifting to tech stocks?
Yeah, we have a sort of what we call a tactical allocation, and that will have a certain amount of percentage in New Zealand, certain in New Zealand, and certain international within your basket. And let's say if it was a classic sort of New Zealand growth portfolio we put together, we'd have about 40% in international, and you might have so of that 40%, you might have let's say 30% of that 40%, or maybe not quite half in you might have a little bit more than that. It just depends where you see the opportunities.
Okay, and so would you be advising me to be looking to the US markets? I mean, how attractive is that?
Look, the US market is still the US market, and whether you think there's going to be a continuation of US exceptionalism or not, there are opportunities in the US market. So what we would call value investing, value stocks. So companies, and the classic is your healthcare, which has underperformed for quite some time. These are great companies. If they start to see some life, if all of a sudden people get a bit more nervous about what's going on with the big tech stocks, and let's face it, the S&P, like the S&P 7, with the, driven by those big tech stocks. If money starts to rotate into those other areas where people feel they are undervalued, where you can pick them up at good prices for future growth, we could see money cycling out of that top 7 and actually being spread wider amongst that market. But you've got to be really careful. Called a value trap. So you look at something and you go, gee, that's good value, that's meant to be a good company, that's a big company, I've heard of that company, it's got a cheap share price. Well, it may be cheap for a reason. So you need to scratch beneath the surface just a little bit to decide, okay, has the market neglected a very good company which will deliver, or is there a reason?
So that happens quite a bit, does it, where you have this value trap when people, pour everything into that and then make a major mistake?
Yeah, because there are some fundamental issues with that company, and that's why it hasn't been performing, and that's why it is likely to take advantage of improving economic conditions. Or is it a company whereby the fundamental it's been ignored, it's unloved, and at some point in time the market's going to realise, hang on, why aren't we in this one? And that's what we should call value. And I think next year we might see a little bit of money rotate back in towards value, as opposed to we've seen it dominated in those very few growth stocks.
Okay, a bit of a pivot. Commentating the cricket tomorrow, West Indies. What are your insights?
Well, it should be a flatter wicket down there at Bay Oval, a chance to play another spinner. I'm hoping that AJ Patel gets a roll. It's actually been a year of the old forgotten. Actually, it's a little bit like the markets.
It is.
Some old forgotten boys coming back into the team and actually then all of a sudden performing. So AJ Patel might get a roll on a flatter wicket. So it may be a little bit harder to actually get the 10 West Indian wickets that New Zealand require, but I still see New Zealand going into as heavy favourites.
Okay, Mark Richardson, really appreciate you coming in, being with us on Herald Now. Thanks to our partners, Forsyth Bar. Well, the US says it's carried out strikes on 3 more boats linked to drug traffickers in the Eastern Pacific. Video released by the US Southern Command shows the strikes carried out yesterday, which killed 8 people. The 3 vessels transiting along known narco-trafficking routes which were operated by designated terrorist organisations. Since September, the US military has targeted alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, destroying at least 6 vessels and killing at least 95 people. Well, as talks continue to try and bring the war in Ukraine to an end, the fighting continues. The Ukrainians have released this video, which has not been independently verified, but seems to show that they've carried out a secret operation by Russia's Navy, using an underwater drone to blow up a submarine. The drone infiltrated a Russian naval port on the Black Sea, targeting a Kilo-class submarine. The sub was critically damaged and is now out of action. Comes to terms with the deadly mass shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach, questions remain about what drove the attack and whether it could have been prevented. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the gunman had been radicalised by an ideology of hate.
There is evidence by a terrorist organisation, by ISIS. Radical perversion of Islam is absolutely a problem. It is something that has been identified globally as a problem as well. By an evil ideology.
Well, to help us unpack what we know so far and the wider security implications, we're joined by Greg Barton, counter-terrorism expert and chair in global Islamic politics at Deakin University. Great to have you with us this morning, Greg. Really appreciate it. The community says they've been warning about an attack like this. Were signs missed here, or was it a tragedy we could have prevented?
Mike, we don't know yet. Authorities are looking at this. You'd have to think that there were opportunities missed. The fact that Naveed Akram, the younger, the son, at the age of 17 in 2019, was investigated by ASIO because he was associated with a known ISIS cell in Sydney. They spent 6 months speaking to him and to his father. They decided he didn't pose a risk. The question is, did they follow up in the 6 years since then and see how he was going? It appears not. At some point his father also radicalised. Maybe Naveed walked away from that youthful extremism and came back to it later, or maybe he was always there, but the point is no one appears to have been observing that. Okay, and I mean that obviously presents a problem. Are the security intelligence authorities a little bit hamstrung in the sense that they can't just go around arresting people without due cause? Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And in 2019, I think it's probably a correct decision to say they couldn't lay charges. There's no basis to arrest him, that charges weren't available. It was right that they looked at him and then sort of moved back. They've got hundreds of people of concern. This was 2019, the height of the Islamic State Caliphate. So, they were very, very busy in Sydney. And all of the extremists that we know of in Sydney were sort of part of one large social network running through a bookshop in Bankstown called Arasala, called Street Dakwa. The pity is that they didn't check back in the following year and the year after, as far as we know, and I'm sure that they're ruining that and looking at points of failure there. And of course, the father was issued with a gun license, or it was confirmed in 2023. That now raises a flag, given that they'd previously. And the pair travelled to the Philippines at the beginning of November and came back just 2 weeks before the attack. You would think they left the Philippines with the intention of carrying out their attack, and were looking for some confirmation from Islamic State fighters in the Philippines who would sort of perhaps bolster their sense of confidence. All of these things could have spotted. And of course, the gaping mistake was they freely walked to a pedestrian overpass facing this very well publicised Hanukkah by the Sea event, and then they occupied that overpass high position, for 8-9 minutes. They were challenged by brave people on the site, confronting them as they got out of the car. And they were, of course, famously challenged by Ahmed El Ahmad, who tackled the younger shooter when he was on the ground, got his weapon off him. Another person threw a brick and was shot dead in response. But the point is, there were no security. There wasn't sufficient perimeter security. It doesn't appear that New South Wales Police had an expert marksman and a sniping rifle available for events such as this. So lots of questions to look at. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely appears to be some failures on multiple accounts there. Can I just go back to a point you made before? Now, the father and son terrorists, they visited the Philippines a month before, as you've mentioned there. So can you just tell us about the Philippines, the IS stronghold there? What exactly have they been doing by going there? Well, associated with people who were linked to IS back in 2019, many of those people to Syria or sent people to Syria. In the Philippines in 2014, groups that had been aligned with Al-Qaeda announced they were planning to switch allegiance to Islamic State, which was at the height of its powers. It was the strong brand. A group called Abu Sayyaf Group. In 2017, there was a terrible siege that lasted 7 months in the city of Marawi, the largest Muslim majority city in the Philippines. After that, most of the IS supporters were arrested or shot, dead, but many went to ground. And there are still many in the heavily terrain of West Mindanao that's also under a special autonomous zone as part of a peace negotiation, the Moro Islamic Autonomous Region. We know that the father and son pair landed in Davao, the capital of Mindanao. It's pretty easy to be picked up and drive by road to that West Mindanao where there are still Islamic State fighters. And it was suggested they underwent military training. You can imagine at least rehearsing using a single-shot hunting rifle in the way that they did. They certainly seem to be fairly expert on the day, tragically. But I imagine that the most important thing, information from somebody directly from the Islamic State network, that they were on the right path, and this would have psychologically helped lock them in. That's speculation, but that's what I imagine is the case. They clearly hadn't been speaking to a lot of IS supporters in Sydney, otherwise authorities would have picked up the communications. They were acting as lone actors, as was the case. Horrible tragedy with the Australian terrorist in Christchurch back in March of 2019, very similar elements. This time two shooters, but still off the network of regular communications, acting as a very tight pair. But that link with the Philippines means they got a chance to speak to Islamic State supporters, and that probably sealed the deal. That confident they were on the right path.
I mean, that in itself raises huge questions, you know, with the son especially being investigated by security analysts, and then the dad gets the firearms license and then they shoot over to the Philippines for a brief visit. I mean, all of those things should have raised red flags, right?
Yeah. Worst terrorism attack on home soil. I mean, Christchurch was the worst terrorist attack by an Australian terrorist, but this is a massive failure. I mean, it's easy to say failure. I mean, clearly there was failure. I know it's a complex situation. Mike Burgess, head of AZ, has been telling every year that what keeps his guys up awake at night is lone actors, particularly in public places, and that's exactly what we saw. One other point of failure, possibly, well, an opportunity missed that we need to think about with, you know, future threats, is that lone actors, by definition, are hard to spot because they're not communicating the chatter with known suspects. You don't get a chance to intercept messages, but they often leak. It's called leakage. They often talk to family and friends about intentions. It sounds like crazy talk, but if somebody hears a loved one saying things that sound crazy, the best thing is to speak up. You may save their life, the life of many others. It doesn't appear that there was the opportunity in this case, but still, it's a reminder that we need to be more attentive to a threat of lone actor attacks, and we need to recognise that there's a link between hate speech and violent extremism, not a direct line, but the people that associated within Sydney till this day are described as acting in a way that is awful but lawful. They engage in hate speech, anti-Semitism, but they seem to skate just this side of the law, or at least it's not easy to arrest and prosecute them. I think we need to toughen up in our hate speech law and its application. Not that most people in hate speech go on to commit violent crimes, but some people who have violent extremist ideas and are encouraging others hide behind the sort of legally dubious ground of hate speech, and that can be a signal to where we've got problems.
Do you think, Greg, that issue is some of these, you know, private hidden groups online? It appears that there are spaces online which are encrypted, which can't be picked up by the FBI or other law enforcement agencies, and in a way it becomes a breeding ground for some of these hateful. Is that part of the wider issue?
That is part of the wider issue, and you know, we saw this with the Christchurch attack, that the gunman, the terrorist, had been very active on, you know, channels like 4chan, 8chan, but such is the volume of hateful talk on those channels and other such. But even if you're looking at them every day, trying to figure out, you know, where the needle in the haystack is, which is your problem, which of these loudmouth idiots is going to do something dangerous and resort to actual violence, it's really hard. I'm sure that AI is already being used in terms of data analysis, but it is still very hard. Sometimes in the deep web, those layers of the web that are not picked up by regular, you know, Google search bots that report to us where things are, if they're deeper down, more pages down, even without being encrypted or otherwise hidden, it's really hard to spot these things. far-right extremism means that now the authorities have to look at that as well as what clearly is a persistent threat from the likes of Islamic State, Al-Qaeda with jihadi Islamist extremism. And I think we're really struggling to know where to look and what to act on. So that's one reason why open public hate speech is an avenue that we can pursue in terms of prosecution, because hate speech causes harm in itself, even though there's no actual physical violence. But it also is a pointer to where networks like the Islamic State network have gone. There are preachers in Sydney who are well known to authorities but have avoided prosecution. In hindsight, that was a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back to, you mentioned about the lone actors, the lone actor terrorists. In New Zealand, security agencies say that is the most likely scenario if there were to be another attack, that it would be a lone actor. But in this situation, you had a father and son who were together. Does that sort of complicate detection and or prevention in any way?
Well, it certainly amplified the threat that they presented as we saw the way they worked together on that bridge with murderous effect. We would still classify them as lone actors because these two were tight. They were conventional digital communications, or even, as far as we know, they were not meeting up with Islamic State supporters in Sydney on a regular basis, such that authorities may have been tipped to what they were doing. They didn't set out, they reportedly had Islamic State flags in their car, so they wanted to be identified, just as the Lynn gunman back in 2014 wanted to have an Islamic State flag, just as the murderous terrorist in Christchurch live streamed his attack. These guys want to be recognised in their minds as heroes. They want to go from zero to hero, but if they're not actually following a command cell in a network, then the communications that we can normally detect pretty well nowadays, that avenue is not possible to us. And father and son, of course, living in the same house, they reinforce, similar mindset. We're not going to pick up their communications unless we have reason to plant listening devices. And obviously that's, you'd have to have a lot of evidence to put your resources into doing that. It's really hard to maintain listening device investigations. So yeah, they were flying under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, we really appreciate your insights this morning on Herald Now. That is Greg Barton, Chair in Global Islamic Politics at Deakin University. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. GP is returning to Auckland. This time it'll be bigger and better. The woman putting it all together joins me next. Then the panel is on to talk us through the big issues of the day.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, you to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at nzherald.co.nz.
We have completed 4 builds with GJ. Every time we want to think of building, we always go back to GJ.
It's a really good experience throughout the whole process.
And feels like working with a family member. It's very easy and trustworthy to work with GJ.
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or no. Is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. I'm Michael Morrow. Great to have you with us this morning. Well, Sale GP is coming back next year. The 2025 event Now they want to build on that to make the 2026 event even bigger. More fans, more racing, just more of everything. Joining me now is Alex Corrie, SailGP NZ head of the event. Well, Alex, pleased to have you with us this morning. Last year was super successful, so top that.
Oh, Mike, nice to see you. Yeah, we're really trying to build on the success of the event earlier this year. So just refining the fan experience, building on that. We're also making the grandstand 30% bigger so that we can get down onto site. But expect, elevated food and beverage experiences, entertainment, activations and things within the race stadium.
So there are quite a few changes to really boost that fan experience, if you like, Alex.
I mean, we're really just trying to get more fans down there. So that's a fantastic spot right on the end of Wynyard Point. We've got the F-50s that fly within metres of the grandstand. So, bringing more people so that they can experience, a great afternoon in downtown Auckland.
Sailing person, what is the attraction of SailGP?
SailGP is really, you don't need to be a sailor to enjoy it. It's an entertainment product. It's bringing sailing to the spectators. So we are in a harbour stadium race. You may have seen, a grandstand right on the end of Wynyard Point. So we've got over 10,000 capacity there each day over the weekend of 14th and 15th of February. And, what you can expect is, the fastest sailboats in the world, the speeds of 100 kilometres an hour coming within metres of the grandstand. There's, entertainment, there's DJs, there's food and beverage, there'll be lots of activations. So it's a great afternoon out. They're really short, sharp races, so each 6 to 7 minutes long with a small break in between. So it's a good afternoon out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I remember last time you could take your own small boat out. I went out of my fizz boat. Are you guys in talks with the harbour master and that sort of thing? Are there still going to be opportunity for the action while not sort of causing major hassle?
Yeah, there is actually. We believe that watching from the grandstand, and the feedback that I've had from people last year is that had a day on the boat versus the grandstand is definitely the place to watch it. What we call BYOB, bring your own boat tickets available so that you can get up close on the water. We know Auckland is, we have a big boat ownership here in Auckland, so there is that opportunity as well.
And Alex, what sort of economic benefit can the city expect from?
It's a huge economic benefit. We get big numbers from overseas coming over for the event. We've seen huge growth in the league over the last 5 years, so we're only 5 years old. So huge growth. We've got over 200 million broadcasts with about 18 million averaging per event. So yeah, we're growing massively as a league. You'll see in season 6 next year, we're bringing in a new team, Artemis Racing, and we're looking to go to events. I'm hoping for season 6 as well. So huge growth as a league and a really exciting event.
Absolutely, it is really exciting. Alex, great to see you this morning, and thanks so much for joining us on Herald Now. That is Alex Corrie, SailGP NZ head of event. So if you SailGP experience, here's your chance, because we're giving you the chance to win a VIP weekend experience at SailGP 2026 for 2. The prize includes 2 VIP Sail Grand Prix tickets, a merch pack valued at $100, plus $1,000 to spend on travel and accommodation. Is go to the Herald win page. That's nzherald.co.nz/win. The competition closes on Monday, the 5th of January. Make sure you check out the T's and C's. Well, next we've got the panel. Rawdon Christie and Joe Robinson are in to discuss the big the day. Then after 8:30, entertainment reporter Jenny Mortimer has the inside word on the new Avatar film. See you soon.
I'm upgrading Grand's old flip phone. This new model's got an awesome camera, built-in AI, and it still flips.
Oh, flip life forever, baby!
Nobody has supreme knowledge or phone upgrades like Noel Leeming.
Maximising productivity, what have you...
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the unions is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back to Herald Now. I'm Michael Morrow. Great to have you with us this morning. Now to talk the big issues of the day with our daily panel. Joe Robertson, specialist in Rawdon Christie, former broadcaster and real estate agent. Hey guys, thanks very much for having us this morning. Just first of all, Joe, our current gun laws, are they tough enough?
I think that probably questions are being raised because of what's just happened in Bondi, and can that happen here? Yes. Probably the question for me is, what do we do with prevention? So that was a terror attack that was built through hatefulness of a certain group, and that is definitely breeding here. We don't do any online safety regulation, don't kind of do any management of those groups online in any active way. It's interesting to me to introduce a firearms regulator when we can't introduce an online safety regulator. Seems to be no political appetite to do that, which would do the prevention work of the hate crimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there are spaces online where people freely, discuss and plan such attacks, and they do so often with impunity because it is a secret chat that they're undertaking. And is this part of a growing issue in your mind?
It's definitely a growing issue, and the DIA, Department of Internal Affairs, have shared that growing issue, one they're really concerned about. But we consistently remove remove staff members from those teams. So I'm really concerned that we are doing nothing / pulling back on online safety regulation when that is the exact place that this kind of culture.
Okay, Rawdon, in New Zealand right now, you can own as many guns as you want. The limit is on pistols. You can only have 12 of those.
Oh, thank God for that.
I mean,
I can get at least another 12 then.
Yes. I mean, what do you think? Because look, I'm not a competitive shooter, and I know a lot of people who like to own guns will get upset with our discussion here this morning potentially, but I just do not understand why you would need 12 pistols, or why there wouldn't be a limit on the number of guns you could have.
Well, and certainly not if it was very, very closely monitored. I could probably I don't shoot. I have no interest. I'll sit here saying just get rid of them all unless they're in the country for security and defence purposes, where I probably do endorse them existing. But you're right. Our rural community relies on them. There's the sports, hunting, whatever it is. So never ever going to be able to just say get rid of them all. So it does control thing. Now, we know, well, we don't know, but had the semi-automatics been available, I dread to think what Bondi would have looked like on Sunday night. So we've moved, you know, very, very fast in the right direction.
Well, those semi-automatics in Australia, at least, I mean, they were repealed sort of 30 years ago after Port Arthur. I mean, so they far ahead.
Yeah, and if anything, post Christchurch, I know there was a lot of commendation for the speed at which we removed them, but the fact they were still here just bemused me when they've been gone from UK, Australia, and places like that for so long. So, but today, you can own 12 pistols. So if you're possibly an Olympic shooter, there might be a reason to have pistols. I just cannot understand why you would ever need more than. This guy had 6 rifles. What is the justification for that? And if there is justification, how closely is it being monitored? And the other part of that is how much ammo is he allowed to build up next to his 6 rifles? So to not removal, because that's never going to work. It's down to probably more awareness, more control, more certification. It's very difficult to own a gun in the UK, even if it's gun for pheasant shooting or whatever it is, which is
They're taking terrorism very seriously there, right? We would say they're really and then actively wanting to change.
Yeah, but the other thing there is, of course, you can take all the guns out of the playground. It's not going to stop terrorism. They'll find another weapon.
Which is, for me, why the prevention piece is so important.
Yeah, it'll be the minibus driving through the people next time or whatever it is. So the guns is only a part of the problem. As far as we're it is just about taking a damn good look at where we're at as far as, are we really sure, as much as we can be, of who's got the guns, how many have they got, what are they being used for?
Yeah, no, that's a salient point. This mega ministry, MCERT, they're calling it, is it necessary? Is it going to speed things up? Operation and less sort of siloed policy? Jo?
I think in and of itself it might be fine. I think the general public maybe doesn't have a great sense of how ministers work. So ministers come into roles or they get portfolios without necessarily any strong experience in that space. So we take Minister Erica doesn't have an education background. So she comes in to an incredibly important portfolio, as many of them are, but is learning on the job. So what this mega ministry is asking a minister to do, who would be taking over 5 different portfolios that currently exist, is learn 5 different spaces potentially. Happen as a result in order not to slow down policy and change, because only one person will have to know all of that, is we need officials, so the people that stay in the ministries no matter what, no matter who gets voted in, we need them to have more power. I don't actually think David Seymour would like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, where do you sit on this, Rawdon? I mean, you know, as a journalist, you often encounter the sort of overlaps and you sort of bemuse at the way in which certain government agencies respond in silos. Is there merit to bunging a whole lot of ministries together and calling it one thing? Complicate matters.
It'll complicate matters until it simplifies matters. But I think we all know how clumsy and how clunky our ministries can be, particularly from a journalist perspective. In this, as far as the ministers goes, I don't really have a concern because we've got ministers of everything anyway. So you may as well have, you know, the Chris running. You know, he may as well bring all his, I don't know, 4 portfolios or whatever into one. My issue is, I don't mind the idea that they're discussing it. I don't mind the idea that they're exploring how to streamline. It's the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? The timing has been criticised today in a big way. I'm not sure about this today. Why is it suddenly happening now? You'll be able to tell me, has it been voiced? Has it been discussed?
This is the first I've heard of it when it was announced yesterday, and it seems to be dropped amid a whole lot of other big things that are going on.
Yeah, so I'll pick up on the conspiracy theory of that one. I'm not sure why we're learning about this today. Christmas.
Well, I think that tells us, though, right? That is why.
Well, I guess it's also pretty unsettling for those workers within those ministries, because one would assume if you were consolidating the ministry, those ministries, that they are going to be also potentially consolidating jobs.
And they've already they already took a 6% over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So that's already occurred, and now we're looking at this. But again, I think this is people potentially don't understand how much control ministers have, and if they don't know their portfolios very well, that's incredibly concerning.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do's and don'ts for kids this Christmas. Jo, I know what you're going to say, but...
What do you think I'm going to say?
Buying the latest phone.
Don't give them a phone.
No phones, please. No technology, thank you. So let's put that one aside. So no tablets, no phones. That would be great. And part of the reason for that is because as a parent, retain as much ownership of devices as possible. So in that pre-14 age group, you know, thinking about presents for them, it's your phone and they're using it. Or it's your tablet and they're using it. Not here's a tablet and here's a phone for you to use at your
So
at your
in my
leisure.
situation, I hate to say this, that I am my 12-year-old an old phone of mine.
Retain ownership of it.
Okay, so it's Dad's phone, but he can use it today?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not about them never being able to use it.
That's a great gift.
Yeah.
It's second-hand.
Don't give it as the gift.
I still own it. You can borrow it.
No, this is not your...
Yeah.
You need to go out, you need to buy a different one.
Okay, Rawdon.
Go and buy a nice wooden truck, like the old...
Yeah.
There are lots of things that 12-year-olds want.
But they really want phones, though.
They do, but
they
my
really
12-year-old
want
ain't getting a
Instagram.
phone.
They really want Snapchat, I know. Rawdon, do's and don'ts for kids this Christmas?
Don't worry about it, because the cost of living crisis has killed probably 90% of people who otherwise might go and spend. What's a new phone? $2,000?
Yeah.
$1,500?
My kids can't even keep a drink bottle.
Yeah,
that's my concern.
So the beauty of it is that just the sheer cost of the things is probably actually solving the problem I want to go back to the second-hand phone, which you're giving your son, which you're now daughter, which you're also now only allowed to lend her after Joe's spoken. Yeah, we've got to rethink the Mora.
Still technically under Michael Mora ownership.
Yeah. So, okay, the do's and don'ts for us, same with our kids, when we were growing up, it was always about you never just race through and rip open all. It's all very controlled, the present giving, and it's a case there's a point in the day. Stockings, obviously, which don't come from mum and dad, are hugely important. Actually, that's probably was the biggest excitement on the day.
No phones and stockings.
But the actual
Santa
gift giving,
there
was a time of day when the kids would actually be, we were always made to wait. And then it was fairly controlled. And then the other thing was that every time you got excited about opening a gift, you knew that name and that gift and the name of the giver was put on a list, and you were going to be writing a letter over the next. And those thank you letters of our lives, but hey, that's how we did it. And I think probably, so I guess, to cut a long story short, teach gratitude. It doesn't matter what you're giving them. Phones are great under the right circumstances, but I've got 3 older kids, so it's slightly easier. But it's all about gratitude.
A great structure, I really like this. Lots of my friends need, love it how I was forgetting it for a second, need, want, wear, read.
Okay.
So 4 gifts if there's enough privilege in play, but need, want, wear, read. So the want is the really fun one, often the wear as well, but they're getting that are going to serve them for a long time.
Very good. That and gratitude. Very salient points this morning from our panel ahead of Christmas. Thank you very much for coming into the studio, guys, Joe and Rawdon. We will see you again very soon. Actually, no, we'll see you next year. This will be your last panel for the year. Hey, Merry Christmas, guys, and coming in week after week and sharing your thoughts with us. It's been fantastic to have you. Joe Robertson, parenting expert, and Rawdon Christie, former broadcaster and real estate agent. Well, the clean-up has begun after a large factory fire in the South Auckland suburb of Whitty yesterday. 15 trucks from 10 stations rushed to the Styrobeck polystyrene factory in Roscommon Road yesterday morning. Large plumes of black smoke filled the sky, and locals were told to avoid exposure to smoke by shutting doors and windows and turning off air conditioning and staying indoors. Roads were closed. The fire was brought under control by lunchtime. The factory is used for recycling and manufacturing polystyrene, a material which helped to feed the fire. The cause of the fire has not yet been determined. Well, Chief Entertainment reporter Jenny Mortimer has sat down with winning director James Cameron ahead of the Avatar Fire and Ash premiere, and she joins us now. Jenny, what was it like?
Oh, it was incredible. Like, when I knew I was going to go meet and interview James Cameron, I thought to myself, okay, another Hollywood, bigwig, he's going to be a certain way. He So incredible, so grateful, such a pro.
He loves New Zealand, right?
Loves New Zealand. Absolutely loves it. As soon as he heard my accent, he like warmed. It was wonderful. On the carpet, once again, I got an opportunity to talk to him, and he came over to me with his wife. This is Jenny, and introduced me. He was such a pro. You know, he had 200 probably interviews in the space of a couple of days, and still that level of professionalism. Loves New Zealand, waved around his passport on the red carpet. The crowd loved him.
That's so cool. And, you know, going to be another Avatar film?
So he has basically said that that model of creating film, especially here in New Zealand, it might be over. They're not getting enough of you know, those tax breaks when it comes to, there was better kind of like subsidies in place for them before. The government saying, make it easier for us to make films here. We bring, you know, jobs. We love working here, but other countries are luring them over with better incentives for making films. You know, we saw it with the Lord of the Rings TV series when Prime then took it over to the UK because they offered a better. So he has said at the moment, this is the last Avatar. There is not another one currently in the works. Of course, there is a 4 and 5, but he doesn't know whether they're going to be feasible to make. And it will all depend on how much money they're able to make from this. Is it viable? And then from that, does New Zealand allow place for them to continue the franchise?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's such an amazing series, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely love Avatar.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think sort of sets it apart and makes it so special?
I guess, you know, here in New Zealand, we had that connection to it from, you know, we see some of our in it now and in third one, and as well a lot of fans of different genres kind of come together in it. Even though you've got the sci-fi, you've got those who love following the storyline, it's got drama, it's got something for kind of all ages too. People would be quite happy taking their teenagers along to see it, and you can sit down and enjoy it together. Because it's 3 hours and 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
So maybe not the little kids with the shorter.
Is it glasses as well this time?
So you can see it at IMAX or the regular theatres. So it's a masterpiece, and he's done something really incredible with the storyline in this one. I got to see it early before its release date tomorrow, and lots about connection. I think New Zealanders will see a lot of Aotearoa too represented in it. And
he said on the red carpet, James Cameron, that, you know, New Zealand is the place to do big movies.
Yeah.
He was really, really backing it. But what's he saying about the film industry itself? There's obviously referenced.
So one of the big things that he mentioned is they're not getting crews coming through like they used to. I guess it's a little bit like what we're seeing in journalism, right? You used to see so many up-and-comers ready to be the next face of the industry. They're not seeing that right now in the film industry. People aren't seeing it as a viable career long-term. So he was suggesting one of the big there's a lack of training because there's a lack of steps and jobs for these people to go into. So he wants to work with universities, he wants to work with government to make it more viable for people to go into this industry and see clear steps of an industry that is thriving that they can be part of. So the training was the really big one, and then of course for the wider industry, it's sense here.
It's pretty epic to have him in our corner to be backing,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Well, he's a citizen now. He became a citizen in August, and he wants New Zealand to thrive. He said he's here long term, even though he's technically done working on Avatar here. He lives in Waitangi, and he said he loves it. This is to sort of thrive with them.
Nice, nice. Thank you very much. Hey, Jenny, really appreciate your insights and time this morning. That is Jenny Mortimer, Chief Entertainment Reporter. Right, we're going to go to the South Island now, where there's been a big push for the government to prioritise passenger rail. Claire Sherwood is News Talk ZB's South Island News Director. Claire, what is being proposed?
So this is the Southerner train service that we have known about as a proposal for some time now. It would be reintroducing a daily train service connecting Christchurch with Invercargill, the main stop along the way, and a point of, a key of that would be Dunedin, but there is talk of it stopping at other key centres and places, including Timaru and even Gore. Now, if the Southerner does return, it would service an area with a population of about 750,000 New Zealanders total, and that's without considering, tourists and anyone else who may jump The key thing, though, is that the advocacy group Save Our Trains has come out saying they have actually put forward a proposal to the Infrastructure Commission to ask that this be considered as part of a national infrastructure priority. They want it listed on the Infrastructure Priorities Program, which would mean then it would national or government level funding. They say that it simply makes sense, obviously, from a people perspective, and the population around the South Island certainly wants it for connectivity, but also from an economic standpoint. They've talked about the fact that the 17 roads of national significance are all from Christchurch, none in the southern region. And further to that, they say that those roads of national significance, or at least to the recent announcements, would mean that's, $170 million per kilometre, for example, listed as being put towards those roads. They say that they would be able to fund a rail service for less than a metre worth of roading infrastructure.
Okay, well, and Claire, you've got an exciting update on the Te Kaha Stadium.
Oh, this is exciting. There's so much excitement and curiosity around the turf or the grass that's been laid at One NZ Stadium. In fact, at one point, it was on the front page of the press newspaper that everyone wanted to know where it was being grown. They had 1.2 hectares of the grass being grown off-site by a subcontractor, and it's now officially been shipped into the inner city and laid down in the stadium, as you can see here. That turf, though, is top secret and will remain that way. Council says they have no revealing the exact makeup of the grass types. They do, however, say that it is what they call a reinforced grass, which means that 95% of the grass product is natural, but 5% is artificial. That helps with stuff like strength and also keeping the green tinge, even if the the lighting setups that they've got and the hydration means that some of the grass, looks a little worse for wear. So no matter what, it will always look nice and green on the tally, and that's the 5% artificial element that makes that up.
Fantastic. Hey, Claire, thank you very much for your time and insights this morning and throughout this year, actually, on Herald Now. You've been Claire Sherwood, News Talk ZB South Island News Director. Well, next, if you're looking for a classy, smooth way to cross Lake Taupo, how about an electric hydrofoil? The Kiwi behind the breakthrough boating technology is in the studio next.
For investment, it's important to find a team.
We decided to build the GGs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They've helped us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhang from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
Term deposit rates are falling, but your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Foresight Bar investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Investment advice.
Welcome back to Herald Now. I'm Michael Morrow. Well, passengers in Taupo will soon be able to fly across the lake, quite literally. An Auckland-designed electric vessel that lifts itself above the water on carbon fibre to Lake Taupo, and what its makers say will be a world first for electric passenger transport on freshwater in New Zealand. The co-founder of the company, Eric Lackman, joins me now in the studio. This looks amazing. Tell me about this boat.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, the boat's really cool. The the world's first commercially certified premium electric hydrofoiling vessel. Lifts itself out of the water, substantially reduces the drag of the vessel, which unlocks battery electric performance. Really what we're doing is we're making boats more efficient so that we can use sustainable energies like battery technologies, like other alternative fuels. Really get more boating going in the sustainable direction.
It's pretty cool. So how long did it take to sort of, work this out and get all the science and the weighting correct and lift off?
Like if you look at like what we're doing, like if you zoom out, we're making an aircraft that has to fly in a 50 centimeter, thousands of miles unimpeded, in constant waves and turbulence in a salty incursive solution. So we've been working pretty hard at it for a long period of time.
Like how long?
Company was founded in 2018, and we launched the first VS9 in, I want to say May of 2024. Recent, and now we've got more vessels on the water, of course, and yeah, it's really just a big unlock for commercial operators like James and Laurel Kells.
Okay, so what is the vision for this product? Like, where would you like to see it go? What is the potential?
Well, really, there's quite a bit of tourism that happens on Lake Taupo. The really big draw card over there is the Maori rock carvings. There's quite a few visitors every year, and this is going to be a great all-weather way to go head out there. Even when it's a little bit rough, even when there's waves going out there, because you're on hydrofoils, it's a far more comfortable experience. So not only is it busy in the summers, which is a busy season, but it's also be busy in the winters as well. Enclosed cabin, more comfortable, which, for an operator like James and Laurel Kells is a big unlock.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, I'm a keen fisherman, salt water, of course. Can you apply this technology to, if you've got 15 and you want to go out fishing, I mean, could that be the fishing vessel of the future?
Oh, 100%.
Does it cope with that amount of swell?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at what the VS9 can do, we can foil on 0.75 meter waves, going 25 knots.
Wow.
If you were to take a standard 9-meter boat out, knots in 0.75 meter waves, well, you might need a chiropractor after you're done because you'd probably be bouncing around quite a bit. So by lifting the boat above the waves, we create a much more comfortable, much smoother experience. So you look forward into the future. Right now we're working on passenger vessels and tourism vessels, folks that really need what we're doing. Okay, well this technology is the most efficient way to move on the water. It's also the most comfortable way to move on the water. We're going to see a lot more of these vessels coming up in different applications like fishing, like recreational applications in the future.
Fantastic. So globally, I mean, how rare is this technology?
There are a grand total of vessels that are commercially certified for passenger use in the entire planet. 2 of them are our boats, which is quite cool. And these vessels have all come about in the last 18 months. But given that it's the most efficient and most comfortable way to move on the water, given that it unlocks battery electric performance, we're going to see more and more and more of these vessels popping up around.
And what does it feel like to be in one? Is it super quiet, and is it kind of like just gliding, like you've been a parasail or something like that, or? Yeah,
it's definitely a lot more like driving in a car on a freeway than sort of like in a boat where, if you're a fisherman, kind of experience the sound of the outboards, the motor. So it's quite a different experience. One of the big things that we've done is we've created our own electric motor, the VS Drive. We're actually putting the motor in the hub of the foil, direct drive. Super quiet, efficient, and really reliable. So that really changes the experience on board.
It's really cool technology. So how long until I could, as a recreational boat owner, go and say, right, I want to pick one of these up? I mean, I assume that they're pretty expensive, but that's obviously your market next. Is that where you'd be looking to go?
They're a bit more expensive today, for sure, especially because we're selling to commercial operators. But in the long, I don't think there's an easy way to say that we're going to ignore this huge increase in efficiency that we get from these vessels, because it's a 3x increase in efficiency. So I think, say, 5-10 years from now, we'll see different products out there available for recreational users that will be touching on different applications.
Thank you very much for coming in, Eric. That is an amazing technology. That is VESEV co-founder and CEO, Eric Lackman. Thank you very much for joining us on Herald Now this morning. Well, time for a break, and next, Garth's back with an update from the business desk, thanks to our partners at 2 Degrees.
Tech solutions experts.
Here to set up your new smart TV.
Oh goody, we're a family of 4, so we need it done perfect. Too high. Too low. Just right.
Of course, we can assess your Wi-Fi network and run a speed test. And now check out these features. This is how
We love streams.
Nobody has supreme knowledge of home TV setup like Noel Leeming.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why, unlike other tea companies, they pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
Welcome back to Herald Now. Well, it's time to talk business with our partners 2 Degrees, and Garth Bray is here from Business Desk. Nice to have you back here at the studio. Big dairy export price drops. What are the numbers showing?
Right, so this is the global dairy trade auctions overnight, the last one for the calendar year, and it continues a is the 9th consecutive drop in that index, 4.4%. So that's another big drop comparable to what we saw last time. But the key that a lot of people focus on in there is the wholesale milk, the whole milk powder price, which makes up a huge component of the earnings that a lot of farmers make out of selling them. And that dropped 5.7%. So it's now down about $3,161 a tonne. That's off 27% from the peak back in May. So it's been a steady decline, and I guess what's driving that is what we've been hearing right through for the last few months, which is increasing production. Countries, the US, Europe, Argentina, China even. Apparently China's latest year-on-year growth in milk production, it was the 2nd consecutive month of growth there, 2%. So even China's getting in on the game. This is, and I guess that could have some impacts back here. Yeah, right. So when can we expect to see the sort of turning around? I mean, when's the next sort of update? Well, okay, so there's they'll have another auction in January. You'd want to wait and see exactly what that runs to. But I guess the question that's probably occupying a lot of minds is, what does this do to the farm gate milk price, or the forecast, which is the one that Fonterra uses to try and set its payout for. It pruned that back last month to a range of between $9 and $10 per kg of milk solids, and it's put the midpoint of that at $9.50. Some others, like Westpac, I think, were talking about that. Their bank economists saying $9.30 was looking more likely, and this might even be putting some more downward pressure on that. 50 cents when they revised it, that was effectively taking like $1 billion out of the economy. So these are quite big movements. If they have to make that sort of a call, you'd imagine they'd be reluctant to revise downwards again. But if this track continues right into the new year and there's not a pickup early next year, then that might be where they're back. Yeah, okay. Now, different topic. A lot of us are thinking about going to the beach. Yep. I certainly am, eventually, when I can go on leave. Yeah. But you've been looking at a plan to mine the sand at Bream Bay in Northland. This is a story close to my heart. Yeah, a place that you know very well, yes, as a whangarei boy, I'm sure. Bream Bay, obviously beautiful. I don't think there's been a lot of scallop fishing there for a long time because they locked down the fishery there when it was smashed. But this is a company called McCallum Brothers. They've been around, the family firm. They've been around for 100 years. They do aggregate and sand and other kinds of products for construction and infrastructure. And they were pushing when they lost consents to be able to take sand from there, and so they want to be able to take 150 to 250,000 cubic metres of sand a year under a consent, if they can, out of the offshore from Bream Bay. The Bream Bay locals are not happy about this. They've formed a Guardian Society, and they've commissioned a report, which is a very well-respected consultancy firm, to take a look at whether this is necessary. Becker's report, which we've gotten hold of ourselves and written about today, basically says there's masses of sand, in their view, available for ready-mix concrete in Auckland, in the Auckland region. Probably, they said, something like 170 to 330 demand, which is another way of saying there's 3 times as much potentially to what we need. So why go after more? And I guess that's the question that probably the McCallum people will be firing back with and saying, well, we're not too sure about some of the details in that report. They're not, you know, they would question whether some of those sources are real sources and so on. And when they make a formal application on this.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly going by the signs and numbers of people protesting, it's not welcome.
It's a contentious, well, 96% they told me of people in the area oppose it, but of course it will likely go through a fast-track panel process because they're on the schedule for this, and then gets called to give evidence in that kind of situation. That's the whole point of that, is to, I guess, limit the numbers of applications from people so they can just look tightly at the decision. Okay, and there's been some developing news about a company under investigation by the financial regulator. Yeah, right. So this is Chance Voigt Investments Group, which is a South Island Rangiora sort of organisation, and they were basically, the Financial Markets Authority got orders from the court to put them into liquidation last month. They're not telling anybody yet why they are investigating. They're saying that's all, you know, just they'll keep that under wraps until they're ready to talk about it more. But our Maria Slade, property editor, has been looking into this. A former employee who's now sort of obviously out of a job, but wanted to tell a story about this and explained that they were, as well as offering sort of 11% returns, which are quite high at the moment, obviously, to wholesale investors for various investments, they were more the way they were going after us. They had, this employee said that they had a certain demographic of investor they were chasing, 65 plus. They were spraying money around the bowls clubs of the South Island to try and get them in, and they had an investment advisors were all very cute young ladies, was the quote. There at all. Yeah, so right. A little bit of an interesting way to sort of do your business, I suppose. We found I think a job ad online that said that the company has no DEI policies when it's employing people. So you're getting a picture. Hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down there. I don't know if that's what they're investigated for or what's led to the liquidation. We'll know more about that probably in the new year when we get a first liquidators report. Okay, just before we go, Garth, the government's books, the HIFU report, Nicola Willis has come out saying that the government's spending is, quote, disciplined, and she was, painting this at Rosie yesterday, saying, and I quote, with fresh airs in its lungs, the economy is picking up. Is she being overly optimistic, or is that accurate? Well, that's what she would want us all to think, I imagine. There's a lot of jawboning going on at the moment. You've also got, I think, the new Reserve Bank governor venturing the same view to in an interview with the Herald that's just dropped this morning. That's well worth a look there, where she's saying, look, it's been 3 years of very weak growth. We're just about to get out of that. I mean, her point there is to say, it's important that we have a healthy economic recovery and that recovery lasts, and that, if there's a rise quickly, households will see that and be more cautious than they need to be. So she's continuing to jawbone banks over that. Nicola Willis is continuing to jawbone us over the prospects. But you can't get away from the facts that we were supposed to be entering into a fiscal surplus next year, was the original plan. And that has been pushed out every year to restate that, and now it's sort of 2029, maybe 2030. There's a lot to play in there. I mean, in terms of market moving stuff, if there was anything, the debt profile was probably one thing that caught a lot of interest yesterday. The government decided to effectively, a bit like a shop has a float, cash in the comes in, it's got enough money. They have some liquidity provisions in there of about, I think they dropped them by about $5 billion. So that reduces the amount of debt that has to be issued, bond issues that have to happen in the next little while before the election. But there's still plenty backloaded after that, which will continue to push up debt. So A lot is riding on a plan that needs to work very perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the struggle is real, and it looks like it's going to continue to be the case for some time yet, even by the Minister's own admission.
Get to the beach if you can, though.
I'll try. Garth Bray, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. That is, of course, Garth Bray from Business Desk. And we today with our partners 2 Degrees, and that is us for today. We'll be back from 7 tomorrow morning. For more news, go to nzherald.co.nz. A quick thank you to our partners, Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barkers, Max, 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilmar and Noel Leeming. From the team at Herald Now, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.